What makes a city a city? There are a lot of obvious answers to this question, like quality of life, activities, and the culture that make a city. But there is one aspect of a city that plays a major role. It can be seen everywhere you go and defines the environment unlike any other. I'm talking about architecture. Architecture defines a city by providing the physical environment. From some of the major cities like New York or Los Angeles, the building structures act as a bridge between the humanities and the sciences. For small cities like Claremont, architecture tells a rich history of what once was. Architecture exemplifies the mood of the times, and this documentary explores the legacy of residential architecture in Claremont. Before the incorporation of Claremont in 1907, there really weren't many homes in the region. Claremont was a part of the boom town that went bust, and it wasn't until Pomona College took over the abandoned Claremont Hotel in 1888 that things started to turn around. The earliest houses in Claremont were Victorian-style homes, which emphasized vertical lines and flat wall surfaces.
A Victorian house is basically one that had a lot of vertical massing, large massing, 2-3 stories, really steep roofs, a lot of ornate trim, bay windows, and the whole concept for the Victorian house was that it had to be beautiful. Buildings, fashion, accessories, furniture should all be beautiful, but not necessarily practical.
Charles Burt Sumner is considered the godfather of Pomona College, and his beautiful home still stands today. Here is the Renwick House that is also a Victorian-style home. See the tower, wraparound porch, and various windows? From the history book, the Claremont Hall, the first location of Pomona College, was a beautiful Victorian building. Great prosperity and invention happened during Queen Victoria's reign, which contributed to these fashionably affordable houses. College Street, between 1st and 2nd Street, exemplifies the Victorian era in Claremont. These survivors only represent dozens or so Victorian structures which once lined the streets of the village area. At the turn of the 20th century, Claremont was gradually expanding. The Claremont citrus industry was starting to take off, and homes being built were taking part of the arts and crafts movement.
Well, during the turn of the century, a couple things were happening. One, first of all, there was a real response to the Victorian era with the craftsman movement, or what sometimes is referred to as the arts and crafts movement. Instead of all these ornate buildings, was simple buildings made out of natural materials and using natural woods. And it was about craftsmanship and handiwork. Lower horizontal massing, big porches with substantial columns holding up those porches, and especially in Southern California, a lot of rock columns. The craftsman movement came along, and you had this more open floor plan in houses, whereas it used to be all very individual rooms in Victorian houses.
Thousands of bungalows were built all over Southern California, and Claremont was graced with one of the most famous craftsman architects, Green & Green, who designed and built the Darling home. This home was a big deal for Claremont, as it got international recognition, as well as the first home the Green brothers demonstrated elements that would mark their signature style.
Bungalow almost became the word for any small-size family home, regardless of what its style was. It was about making home ownership more affordable. And even in Claremont, we have lots of examples of kit homes that were built. And so people would order these homes, either I think from Pacific Homes or from the Sears Roebuck catalog, and build a complete house from a kit.
Stone architecture was also popular during this time, where whole homes were built with Claremont potatoes.
The stone houses in Claremont came about because of the citrus industry. Because as they were clearing the land, there was all these stones. You can see them along Baseline, the Johnson House on mountain just above Foothill, another great example, or the Pitzer House. You know, that house is just an incredible house, and that house was designed by Robert Orr, and it's been called probably the best example of a stone house in all of Southern California.
The roaring 1920s in America brought nostalgia across the country. Architecture after World War I embraced the colonial past, and Claremont homes and buildings reflected this with the Spanish colonial revival.
So after the 1915 exposition in San Diego, Spanish colonial architecture became very, very popular.
The Spanish colonial architecture is defined with the stucco walls, red tile roofs with low pitch, window grills, plaster exterior and internal walls.
After World War I, there was a huge building boom, okay? And a huge increase in population, and so a lot of the houses were built in that style after World War I, the 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Many prominent places in Claremont, like the Santa Fe Depot on 1st Street, Gardner House in Memorial Park, City Hall, the Post Office, and the entire campus of Scripps College are Spanish colonial architecture.
Probably one of the most recognizable houses is the Gardner House, and designed by Arthur Munson. In fact, from 1926 until 1930, the Gardners built the Gardner House, the Vortex Building, and Padua Theater. Now, Padua Theater is probably the most recognizable Spanish Revival architecture we have in Claremont. Spanish Colonial was so popular that you do see it everywhere. Probably Spanish Colonial and Craftsman or the bungalow style were the predominant styles from the early 1900s up to the 1940s throughout Claremont.
It wasn't until after World War II and the post-war boom when things started to change for Claremont. Architects at the time were looking for a housing type that would allow for maximum living space with the least square footage to accompany this boom of people coming to the area. Builders needed something easy yet appealing. Enter the suburban ranch house.
After World War II, it was even more of a mass exodus from the country to the city. And there was a credible, not only a baby boom, but a credible boom in the economy. And home ownership now was even more affordable for many more people than ever before.
Usually one story, the ranch home is typically a horizontal home with a car garage attached. North and West Claremont is where the ranch expansion took hold most, where you will find entire neighborhoods in this style.
But very much about family and where you could raise a family. And so they were on big lots, big backyards. So you could also have that other American dream, the swimming pool in your backyard. So you had this huge building boom, and Claremont doubled in size after World War II.
Another staple after the post-war period in Claremont was the mid-century modern. Mid-century modern homes have a character of flat plains, large glass windows, and open space integrated with nature.
But the thing that the mid-century modern had really in common with the ranch house was it was about bringing the outdoors in. The house was built so that it opened to the backyard with wide expanses of glass and sliding glass doors and ways of embracing that California lifestyle and that California living outdoors and bringing the outdoors in. And they're interspersed throughout the town. You're not going to find a tract of them anyplace, you know.
A lot of commercial and college buildings use the mid-century architecture. Pitzer College, founded in 1963, is majority mid-century modern. In fact, they say that a walk through the Claremont colleges is like taking a tour of the famous architectural styles. For Claremont, it started with the Victorian homes, then the bungalows, to the colonial revival homes in the early 20th century, to ranch and mid-century modern homes in the 1950s and 60s. Claremont has a very diverse set of architecture, and that makes the city very unique.
So you go to any neighborhood in Claremont and you're finding people that are talking about how much they love their neighborhood and how they want to maintain that neighborhood in the same manner that it was built. They want modern conveniences, they want to be able to add on and expand at times. But now it's a matter of how do you honor that past architecture and still give people what they need for modern living. And when you talk about Claremont and the sense of place that people have here, and they'll go, well, this has changed and this is bad. Well, the thing is that if you look back at history, it's been nothing but change. That's how the city grew. So at the end of the day, I think, if you want to keep Claremont, okay, what you have to do is you have to make sure that you maintain those things that are historic and good and add to the flavor, the ambience of the town, and by still allowing for new development to come in those places where it can happen and make sure that it fits.